So, if you've got your eyes on the Malaysian market, then 2026 is a year you're definitely going to want to watch. In this explainer, we're going to do a deep dive into the consensus outlook. We're talking financial forecasts, the policies driving the growth, and of course, the specific sectors that analysts think are really poised to take off. Here's how we'll break it down. First, we'll look at the big picture view for the market. Then, we'll get into what's actually fueling all that optimism. From there, we'll zoom in on the specific growth sectors before checking out some individual stocks that are on people's radar. And to finish up, we'll take a realistic look at the potential risks on the horizon. You know, this phrase from MIDF research really says it all. Brighter skies emerging. It just perfectly captures the mood among analysts looking at 2026. It's this feeling of cautious optimism, suggesting that after a bit of a quiet period, the fundamentals are really starting to line up for some solid growth. And here it is, the headline number, 1,750. This is the consensus baseline target for Malaysia's main stock index, the FBM KLCI. Now, hitting this number isn't just about reaching a new post-pandemic high. It signals some serious potential for investors who are paying attention. Okay, so let's unpack that optimism. This first section is all about those brighter skies. And what's important to remember is this isn't just one bank's opinion. This is a theme we're seeing echoed across a whole bunch of research houses, which tells you the consensus is pretty strong. Now, take a look at this. What's really interesting here is how tightly clustered these forecasts are. I mean, you've got Maybank at 1730 and JP Morgan at a more bullish 1800, but they're all pointing in the exact same direction, up. That kind of agreement suggests a really strong, shared belief in the market's underlying strength this year. So, the big question is, why? What's actually fueling all this optimism? Well, that brings us right into our second section, the policy and economic engine. You're about to see that this positive outlook isn't just based on good feelings. It's built on some really solid economic fundamentals and a very clear policy direction. This image right here perfectly illustrates the foundation for all this optimism. On one hand, you've got record government spending planned for 2026, which is pumping a lot of money into the economy. But, and this is the crucial part, at the same time, the budget deficit is actually shrinking. That's a huge sign of fiscal discipline. And it's that combination of growth and responsibility that gets international investors really excited. And when you dive into the numbers, you see a picture of some serious resilience. We're looking at a robust GDP growth forecast between 4 and 4.5%. The unemployment rate is sitting around 3%, which is basically what economists call full employment. And get this, corporate earnings are expected to grow by 7.7%. So the domestic economy itself is providing a very stable launchpad. And this stability isn't happening by accident. It's being actively propped up by what you could call three key policy pillars. First, you've got Budget 2026, which gives that immediate, targeted support. Then, 2026 is the kickoff year for the 13th Malaysia Plan, which is when huge projects move from the drawing board to reality. And holding it all together is the Ekonomi Madani framework, which is all about making those long-term structural changes for sustainable growth. Okay, so with that strong macro picture in our minds, let's ask the most important question. Where are the specific opportunities? Time for Section 3, our spotlight on growth sectors. Let's drill down from the 30,000-foot view to the industries that are really set to benefit. First up, and this is a big one, is the power sector. Pretty much every analyst sees this as a core structural growth story, and it's being driven by these massive national strategies and just a huge surge in industrial demand. The catalysts here are powerful, and they're all connected. You've got the National Energy Transition Roadmap picking up steam. You've got the explosion of data centers, which are incredibly power-hungry. All of that means the grid needs major upgrades. And new large-scale solar projects are being rolled out to meet those green energy goals. It's a textbook example of a capital-intensive upward cycle. Next up, and it's a no-brainer, is the construction sector. I mean, with all this spending, someone has to build it all, right? After years of planning, 2026 is really shaping up to be the year of execution for a ton of major projects all over the country. So we're talking about the rollout of huge public transit projects like the Penang LRT. At the same time, there's a private sector boom, especially with those data centers down in Johor. And as if that's not enough, there's over 2 billion ringgit set aside just for airport expansions. This pipeline is so diverse, it gives the whole sector really strong earnings visibility. The third key area is technology, and this is where Malaysia gets to play on the global stage. The country's in a really unique spot to benefit not just from its own policies, but from these massive shifts happening in the tech world,
especially around semiconductors and AI. So you've got the global semiconductor cycle recovering, which is a natural tailwind. And then there's Malaysia's geopolitical neutrality, which makes it a perfect China plus one destination. That just means as global companies look to diversify their supply chains away from China, Malaysia becomes a top choice. On top of all that, the government's own national semiconductor strategy is actively pumping money into the ecosystem to help local companies move up the value chain. And finally, we've got tourism and consumer. Think of these sectors as being powered by a dual engine. You've got international visitors coming back, and at the same time, you have really resilient spending from locals, which is being actively supported by the government. The big headline initiative here is the Visit Malaysia 2026 campaign, which is aiming for a record number of tourists. That's a direct shot in the arm for airlines and hotels. And at the same time, you've got government cash aid programs putting money directly into consumers' pockets, which supports stable demand for everything from retail to services. So how do we take these big, broad themes and turn them into actual, tangible investment ideas? Well, that brings us to Section 4, Stocks on the Radar. Let's look at a few of the specific companies that analysts have been pointing to. This table really connects all the dots for us. You can see Malayan Cement and Gamuda tying directly into that whole construction and infrastructure story. Tenaga National and SGG, they're clear beneficiaries of the power sector upgrade cycle we just talked about. And then you have a diversified player like OSK Holdings, which is positioned to catch the wave of the broader recovery, especially with its hospitality business, thanks to tourism. Now, to round out our analysis, it's absolutely crucial that we keep a balanced view. So for our final section, we need to talk about navigating potential headwinds and just be honest about the risks that could challenge this whole optimistic outlook. This slide lays out the balancing act perfectly. On one side, you have these powerful domestic strengths, clear policy support, a strong consumer, fiscal discipline. It's a great story. But on the other side, the risks are pretty much all external, and they are significant. A slowdown in the US, a major geopolitical flare-up, or more US-China tech tension could all throw a wrench in the works. And that is why the overall theme is one of cautious optimism. So as we wrap this up, the key drivers and the hot sectors are pretty clearly defined. The foundation looks solid, but the global environment is, well, uncertain. And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. With the catalysts for energy, infrastructure, and technology all firmly in place, which of these massive opportunities will be the one that truly defines Malaysia's next chapter of economic growth?